have arrived at the last episode before the finale. Yes, the 2-part finale begins next week, and this episode does a lot to set up that episode, as was teased by the Doctor Who Twitter account. We knew this was going to be in some way setting up the finale. And it does that effectively, and we're going to get down to that in a minute. But first, I'm going to issue you with a spoiler warning, because there is a reasonably big spoiler in this episode. So yeah, but I'm going to talk about, just give you a moment to click away and watch the episode yet. It's probably available on iPlayer by now, but it's time to talk about this episode. This episode is a lot, and I think mostly works. It had my attention throughout. It's a thoroughly well written episode, and although I did predict the reveal of the Cyberman, reveal even before the episode even aired, I was like, the moment I saw the thing, this sets the stage for the series finale, I'm just like, yeah, this is definitely got the Cyberman in it. To have the Cybermen work with Mary Shelley is not necessarily an original idea, because it happened in Big Finish, but I think they do it enough here to make it probably different from that kind of episode, I think, that I think it works to a certain extent. The thing I don't like about this episode maybe is that I kind of did just want a genuine sort of haunted house type story, if I'm honest. I was kind of hoping that the Cybermen wouldn't turn up, but to be fair, it did still. I think I enjoyed it as much as I probably would have done if the Cybermen weren't here. There is a lot to unpack in this episode. The direction of this episode, the set design, the costumes are all phenomenal. I love it when they get in period costumes. I think Yaz has some great period costumes in this episode, and in Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. Ryan had a great period costume, so did Graham. They all looked fantastic in their period costumes. So it was nice to see the Doctor get a slight change of costume as well in this episode, which is not usually something we see. It was nice to see her in a shirt rather than her t-shirt. It has a nice little bit of variation to the costume, which I think is often needed, particularly with hers, which is, out of all the Doctor's costumes, I think is quite bland. Just personally, I've grown to like it more, and I've liked the little additions that she adds to them. So like the bum bag, the scarf, the what was the other? I can't remember what the other one was. There was something else, like the goggles and stuff. I think they do add something to her costume. And it's nice to see her get a slightly different shirt and a new scarf, which sort of replaces the rainbow stripes that are absent on the actual costume. So everything, I will say this, I wasn't quite fond of what I'm assuming is the new Cyberman theme, because it's the theme that starts playing when the Cyberman is introduced. I didn't like it. I think it didn't fit with the tone of the story. The tone of the story is quite gothic, maybe, quite dark and very suspenseful. And I don't think the music met that. I think the music, particularly when the Cyberman was introduced and when they were building up with the Cyberman reveal, I don't think it quite worked. And I don't think mostly the music didn't work in this episode, but it's the first time that I've ever actually properly felt that, except maybe in the finale of last series, where I thought it was a bit, I still like the music, but I didn't think it quite worked with the episode. This case, I didn't really like the music, and I didn't think it fit with the episode, but I think it's very well written. I think it's one of the best written episodes of the series. It kept my attention throughout, and I still really do like it. But let's talk about the TARDIS team. I think all of the companions, except maybe Ryan, got something to do that I thought was nice. I think Yaz had some nice moments with Mary Shelley, or was it? Or it might have been Claremont. I think it might have been Claremont actually. Mary Shelley was with Ryan, and then she was with Miss Claremont. I think she had a nice chat towards the start of the episode. Graham had that lovely scene with the sandwich and the ghosts, or it's kind of left open for an interpretation whether they were ghosts or not. I thought when they mentioned them at the end, I thought that maybe they might be coming up in the finale. You never know, but who knows what they were. But I guess it was funny. Or maybe they were just servants, and Graham just thought they were scary or whatever. He's an old man. he can afford to be scared of creepy house servants, I guess. I think the Doctor had some great moments with the Cyberman. I think this is probably Jodie's best performance. I think she has a relatively strong cast to compete with, but not so strong that they overshadow her, which is what's happened in a lot of episodes. I think Joe Martin overshadowed Jodie Whittaker in Fugitive the Jadoon, and I think Nikola Tesla definitely overshadowed Jodie Whittaker in Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. But in this episode, I think she's got people to compete with in terms of performance, but they're all of a relatively similar acting stature, I think, so they all kind of mix in together quite well. And Jodie's big speech about not the team being like a flat structure, but being a mountain, I thought it was I thought it was an amazing scene. It really brought out the anguish in the Doctor that I think I've been missing for a while. And I think that's probably Jodie's best speech, definitely best performance. Up there with her speech in Orphan 55, which actually I do defend. I quite like that speech. I think it's very well written, and I think it's very well performed. And it's in scenes like that, I think Jodie, for all the fact that a lot of fans are saying, oh, Doctor Who's far too preachy, I think Jodie's at her best when she is preaching or giving a speech. Like Peter Capaldi was at his best when he gave that speech in Zygon Inversion, I think. The speeches are an elemental part of Doctor Who, and they have been for a while now, and every Doctor has an iconic one, and I think this is probably Jodie's most iconic one, at least to me. I think this will go down as one of her best episodes, up there with, for me, Can You Hear Me and Rosa. For me, they're the best episodes for her, and I think this episode probably gets into that quadrant for me, and this is definitely one of at least Jodie Whittaker's best episodes, if not one of the best of her era, which we'll get to when I come to my conclusion. I think the guest cast in this episode were quite notable. I think they were all very well given enough screen time, I think, which is a rare thing in Doctor Who at the moment for characters to get enough screen time, particularly with such a large cast. I think Ryan was probably the only one who didn't get enough screen time in this episode, if I'm honest. I think they were all charming. I thought they were all quite well fitted into their roles. I thought every character had some nice moments. I thought Lyle Byron trying to flirt with the Doctor was funny. I thought Mary Shelley I think she was quite an important figure in this episode. I think she got a lot to do. She was figuring out stuff, and and then Lady Claremont, I think, found, obviously, Percival. I think it's Percival Shelley. Was it Percival? I don't know all the history of these characters, but I know Mary Shelley's not husband, because they never actually got married. I think she found him, and then when they all split off to try and find the Doctor and find whatever the Cyberman was looking for, and they all got nice moments. And then obviously the guy who's lost his mind, I guess, the one who sleepwalks. I can't remember all their names because I've just come out of the episode. I think he had some fun moment when he was trying to duel Ryan. I suppose that was a moment for Ryan. I think that was probably Ryan's best moment when he was, and Graham was like, actually no, I'm not going to be your second in this. Oh wait, is it second or first? I don't know the ins and outs of dueling, but I thought his reaction was very funny, and I think he gave an interesting performance being asleep or sleepwalking, and then it obviously didn't reveal wasn't his dream, he was just sleepwalking, I guess. I'm curious to know why he was sleepwalking. I don't know if there was a thing or reason for that, but I think the guest cast overall were just very charming, very lovely, and all gave good performances. I think they all had some good moments. The lone Cyberman meets... I'm just trying to think of a metaphor and it's just lost me, but the lone Cyberman meets his gunman, I guess, in the form of the Doctor in this episode, where it's revealed the lone Cyberman isn't anyone particularly interesting. It's just a lone Cyberman, a Cyberman by itself. I mean, it sounds a bit, I guess, Texas cowboy type thing, but I guess that's very much Captain Jack, if I'm honest. He's American, the kind of average Texan, I guess. I mean, I don't know exactly where in the USA Captain Jack comes from, or even if he does come from America. I don't think he even did in the end. I think it was just posing as being someone from America, if I remember rightly. But the lone Cyberman, I kind of expected it. And that was the thing. I think it's supposed to be something that you weren't expecting. And I'm sure that most of the audience didn't expect the Cybermen to turn up. From the teasers and the trailers, if you hadn't seen that last one that the BBC America put up, you might be none the wiser. But it became increasingly obvious, particularly if you paid attention to the newspaper articles that were circulated earlier last year about the Cybermen being in this episode. It wasn't a surprise. So in that respect, the fact that it was in the news and it was in the trailer, I think a lot of people expected it. So what this doesn't have is the element of surprise that Spyfall Part 1 and Fugitive to the Jadoon had. And that's why I think many people will probably view them as the better episodes, because they'll have that memory of finding out, oh crap, the Master's in this one, or oh crap, there's a new incarnation of the Doctor. But in this episode, you don't have that, oh crap, the Cybermen are in this episode, they mean business, don't they? So in this episode, kind of detracts from the element of surprise, and it just sort of feels like if they put it in a trailer, we would be none the wiser. And it just feels really odd, because it's supposed to be a surprise, and I can see that they were thinking it was a surprise. But I guess the news got out, and they might as well have just put it in the trailer. So I suppose, I mean, at least the media didn't catch on to Joe Martin or the Master, because we've had some wonderful surprises. It's just a shame this wasn't one of them. The Cyberman design, I'm still not fond of. I just haven't I didn't like it when I saw it in the trailer. I thought it didn't look quite real. It looks real in this episode, I can tell. It's sort of a lot bulkier, and I don't want to say makes the Cyberman look fat, but it kind of makes it look plump, I guess is the word. It just looks a bit big and a bit heavy, if you know what I mean. Like, out of all the Cybermen costumes, it just looks like it's not been particularly comfortable at all to wear. I mean, I'm not sure. Obviously, it's no judgment of the person actually wearing it, because I'm sure there's loads of padding in that costume. I dread to think how much styrofoam. Maybe it's styrofoam to make the costume actually comfortable, because I guess they might have learned from previous. That's the weirdest noise I've ever heard. I don't know if you heard that, but that was my sister running across the corridor, like another weird Doctor Who monster. But oh well. But yeah, the Cyberman, I think the idea of having the Cyberman sort of face sort of half off was a good one, but I think it would have helped if they'd, particularly how this is supposed to inspire Frankenstein, I think it would have helped if they'd sort of made the inside of the Cyberman look like, if you had the Frankenstein monster's head from the movies, you could have had the weird bits of screws and stuff and the stitching. I think that would have maybe put that made that design look a lot more effective, if it gives you something to otherwise it just looks like someone's face is under there, and it just looks like they're wearing a costume, which kind of detracts from the whole idea of the Cybermen, I guess. I like the idea of it being sort of half converted, but also reminds me very much of Cyberwoman, which I don't like, which is a Tortured episode, and actually is written by Chris Chibnall, so that was another half-finished Cyberman that was supposed to be from Canary Wharf, and the Yanto Jones's girlfriend gets half converted, and that he brings it to the Tortured lab. So in a way, it does kind of remind me of that, actually. That's an element that I probably was hoping he wouldn't bring back, and he kind of did. So, I mean, but I think the plotline that they did with the Cyberman was quite good. The whole idea of trying to find the Cyberium, obviously the Cyberium being in Mary Shelley's, I'm just going to say partner, because I guess it makes sense. She's not actually Mary Shelley, she's always Mary Godwinson, because she never got married, but she considered herself married. I know I've already said that, but I just thought it was an interesting fact. But yeah, I think it was a nice twist that reveal, and I think it brings up questions for the finale about what the Doctor will do, because obviously the Cyberman is now got, the Cyberium is obviously going to go rebuild the Cyberman army, which I don't know if the Doctor should have done that. I mean, it was bloody obvious that she was going to do that, because, I mean, walking into this episode knowing what Captain Jack's warning was about the lone Cyberman, don't give it what it wants, it was obvious that in order for the finale to happen, she was going to give it what it wants, but I don't think she should have done. I feel like she would have tried to have found another way to save Mary Shelley's husband and partner. I feel like that's what really should have happened, but it isn't, because the Doctor is clearly a bit... I suppose it shows like the element of the Doctor that she has a heart and cares about... Oh, she's a romantic, if you remember from Praxeus. So I guess it kind of works, but I'm still questioning that she would choose to save that person despite Captain Jack's warning. I think it's a bit... I don't know, I guess it does probably work, if I'm honest. It probably sounds like the Doctor now that I say it aloud. But I just think the Cyberman thing, I don't know, because it felt like it was going with one thing at the start of the episode, and then to bring in the Cyberman kind of felt like a bit of distraction, and then it kind of went in a completely different direction. But I mean, it depends on how the finale is executed. I know I've said this a lot of times, but the finale has to really bring the whole series together for each of these episodes, like this episode and Future to the Jadoon, to work. And if I'm really honest, I think the Cyberman moments of this episode were the weakest for me. And I don't think I've enjoyed the returning monster aspects of this series as much as I have enjoyed the single episodes, like Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror or Can You Hear Me? But that's my personal thing, you see. I know a lot of people have preferred these kind of episodes. But I think the way Chris Chibnall is going about these type of episodes is very different from the way that RTD or Stephen Moffat maybe not RTD, but Stephen Moffat went about it in a very different way. In this era, you're kind of having whole episodes dedicated to the story plot, and then you're having, like, rather than elements of the story leading into the finale, which is something that Stephen Moffat did. I think elements scattered throughout episodes, and then they would all come together in the finale. And instead of this one, you have 1 or 2 or 3 episodes that have some kind of link to the finale, and then the other few episodes feel very separate and disjointed. And I think it says something about the story arc that I'm finding those episodes more intriguing, the ones that sort of just by themselves, because I like Doctor Who experimenting. I thought the animated segment, although I think it was a bit out of place in the episode, was a nice little scene. I thought Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror had some fantastic performances in, and a great villain to boot, and I'm just like, I preferred those kind of experimental type episodes over to these episodes, which I think is what makes Chris Chibnall's era for me. But I still think this is one of the better Chris Chibnall episodes, and I think the Cybermen have a part to play with that, and I think that if the finale does deliver, I think Cybermen can justify being in this episode. I think, again, this episode has some great ideas thrown in it, lots of different ideas, a variety of different ideas, all thrown into one episode, to the point where I don't think it can maybe work in the 50-minute timing. But I do think that there's a lot going on, a lot that's good, a lot that's bad. Jodie Whittaker's best performance, the directing is all good, the set, it all looks lovely. It looks like, it does feel like an episode of Downton Abbey or something like high-end ITV drama in that respect. The costumes are lush, everything just sort of clicks in a sort of artistic view. The soundtrack was maybe a bit off. The writing, I think it kind of progressed very well at the start, and then for me kind of slowed down and dragged with the Cybermen. For me, I just don't think Chris Chibnall actually, to be honest, in hindsight, I think Chris Chibnall was probably right to not have any returning villains in Series 11. But I'm going to get judged and berated for that comment, because I don't know, a lot of people have liked the returning villains, and I think it was nice that the returning villains didn't had a break, and then them all coming back in this series has sort of all felt a bit like half-hearted. It's like, we need to have something to win the fans back, which is my view on it. I mean, I'm probably wrong, but I just think it's not really what I think it's what I thought I wanted, but I don't think it is what I wanted. I think I probably wanted more of Series 11, which I think I wanted what Series 11 was, but without Graham and Ryan. But we'll get to that in the series overview when the series is actually over. But overall, it's great. It's a pretty solid episode, I think, to be honest. Without the Cyberman stuff, if I'm honest, I think it's gonna... I'll see where it takes it in the finale, but I don't think it's going to work for me personally. I think it's going to work for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are going to like the Cyberman stuff and the finale, but for me, I'm more interested in the Ruth Doctor and the Timeless Child aspect. So maybe, who knows, maybe the finale sort of, it finishes itself with episode 9 and I can see episode 10 as something that I really want to see, because I think the Timeless Child is the aspect that I'm more interested in personally, because I think that's the arc that Chris Chibnall has created, that I think is something that he wanted to do, whereas I think the whole arc with the Cyberman is something that I think he feels pressured to do because of the fans, which is, I know it's a controversial statement, but I think it's probably true. But yeah, it's overall a solid episode. I think 8.5 out of 10. I think it is probably the most entertaining episode of the series. Has some great moments with the Doctor. There's just a lot of elements that I'm not so sure about at the moment, which I think I'll probably be able to get over by the time the series is over. But yeah, overall a great episode, I think. And one of the best, I think probably the best of the series, if I'm honest. I have some problems with it, but I think they can probably be resolved by the end of the series. So, next week, Doctor Who's finale begins as the Cybermen ascend from darkness in Ascension of the Cybermen on BBC One at 7:10 next Sunday. So yes, join me afterwards for my review, where I will get to my thoughts of that episode, but I will warn you, because I'll probably be like, oh, I'll have to wait for the second part to really dodge this, but we'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.